Okay, good afternoon, students. I'm going to quickly give you converting our slides into video lesson. And of course, we're working with post-colonial theory according to Spivak, 1985. The concept of the subaltern, it's a spatial metaphor represented as a circle. The subaltern group is on the periphery. The colonized and the elites, they occupy the center. This here explains more about the center, periphery, and the spatial metaphor. Some time ago, we looked at binary opposition. And so on one side, we had colonizer opposing colonized, oppressor, oppressed. Spivak model doesn't specifically say that it's circular. So even though, let me see if I find that one for you. Here it is. Understanding the concept of the subaltern, you may think of a circle. The word subaltern means of a lower status and it's associated with military. You'll find it used often in a passage to India. And therefore, you could return to any of the hierarchies we studied earlier, those pyramids. Who's at the top? Who's at the bottom? And maybe way down at the bottom, that's where you find subaltern, or below what's at the bottom there, you'll find the subaltern. No, you're given a different representation. Center, and outside here is the periphery. So outside here maybe is where on the margins you have the subaltern. So the West and Europe as the subject, they're in the center and that's the core. And on the margins you have those who are othered by Europe. And so the center has a subject, and at the margin they place those who are not the subject, and the term uses other or othered. You're going to get familiar with the terms eventually. And so, like I was saying earlier, we became familiar with the binary opposition. And for Spivak now, the subaltern doesn't even have the voice of the oppressed. So oppressor, binary opposite is the oppressed, but the subaltern is located beyond that. And so there is another category here. On the outside, you have the subaltern. Or subaltern, let me try to read what's here. Subaltern is invisible to both the self and both the other. Invisible to both the colonizer and the colonized. And the subaltern speak, and you have the explanation going there for you. And then at the bottom, I point to you that indigenous people are also classified as subalterns. So Amerindians and all those indigenous people are classified as subalterns. They're on the margins. Now, the metaphor evinces the idea of Europe as a center, other geographic locations and cultures, margins, marginalized, and we probably need to say are the margins. So the spatial metaphor reaffirms binary opposition. So from the middle now to the outside, you still seem to be constructing a two-way thing, right? The center to the margin. Let me go back. So what I do now, I bring you citations from Spivak's essay, and I use direct quotations because that's the only way we could hang on to what the theorist says. If you take what somebody has said about her essay, you're twice removed from it and you're not familiar with it. So I'm giving you some of the quotations, but I'm not giving you the page number, right? So in your work, you have to provide the page number if you borrow anything. She says, let us now move to consider the margins. And she does a strange thing. She said, you could just as well say margins of people who are silent and let me see. She could just as well say the One can just as well say the silence center. So what she does is with this circular thing, she inverts it and she says, even if you put the colonizer here and you put the subaltern in the middle, the treatment is going to be the same. Marginalization is still going to take place. So if you invert the model, maybe it doesn't make much of a difference. She says, consider the margins of the circuit marked out. And marked out by what? She uses technical terms that could be challenging. What's responsible for marginalization? She says, epistemic violence. And epistemic means, down through the ages. Men are also responsible, and there are women marked out by the epistemic violence. Men and women bound the present tree and the low strata they experience. It gives you some language like Marx and the working class, and maybe that challenges you too. In some cases, I've highlighted what you could borrow. She says you must not confront the following question. On the other side of, on one side, she says international division of labor, and on the other side, socialized capital. So the margins, the circuit of epistemic violence of, so this circuit is not really the margin. Circuit meaning no progression of epistemic violence. And the imperialist law facilitated it. The imperialist education facilitated it. The economic system and economic text facilitate. And so she's asking, can the subaltern speak? I have punctuation errors. Spivak cites her definition of the subaltern, and she says that she borrows from the work of Antonio Romanzi. And he has a whole study on subaltern classes. And so she does the scholarly academic thing. You borrow something, you acknowledge, right? But what I've done, I've omitted most of where she borrows from the other theorists because it's too dense for you. I try to take her exact points that she makes. So back now to the center and the margin. And the subject is there, and on the margin you have the author. Spivak says consider margin, the phase development of the subaltern. And when you talk about phase development of the subaltern, maybe she's speaking of the reformation of the untouchables. And she says some of the most radical criticism coming out of the West is the result of an interested desire. The West has a desire to conserve themselves as a subject, right? Or West as a subject. She says the silence is silent by, and here you have the term again, epistemic violence of imperialist law and education. She says you should turn your attention to the illiterate peasantry and find out who speaks for them, who speaks for those who are rendered silent. And maybe colonial writers like Conrad and Forrester, they produce narratives of Africa and India. Then we question from whose perspective are they given these stories and their narratives? Examine them really as narratives of the elite. And so she's calling them essentialist narratives. She identifies another kind of group, and I think it's Marxist analysis again, but the workers struggle with the workers on the periphery now. So not subalterns. She's adopting this whole spatial metaphor. Workers are there and they're incapable of dealing with global capitalism, right? They're the unemployed and the nation state and the nation state ideologies, they're at the center. And you find an increasing subtraction of the working class in the periphery from the realization of surplus value. The surplus value that comes, let us say, from oil, people on the periphery, they're the ones who hardly get anything. So she's saying, look for the humanistic training in consumerism. large-scale presence of para-capitalist labor, as well as heterogeneous structural status of agriculture and the peasants. And maybe in our experience, we have the civil workers, and before them, we have slaves. My time is up, but here this one deals with voicelessness and visibility, and avoided giving you the quotations here, but go through them and you could pause the video where necessary and get your work. And here I have more citations from Spivak. She speaks about who tells the story and who do we believe. And this is called historiographies, people who want to write or rewrite history. And she says there are a certain group of people who participate in this thing. They're the Indian elite, right? And they're known to become informants for the world intellectuals and the trusted voices of people like Forrester and Joseph Conrad who want to write the story and they need to get the information and it's the elite who give them. So then it's an elitist story. She's still saying, don't mix it up and think that she's saying the subaltern is homogeneous. Really, the subaltern subject is irretrievably heterogeneous. In the case, the Indian case cannot be taken as representative of all countries, nations, cultures. Yeah, Maureen, that will be up soon. She gives you more information about the Indian, the subaltern, the project, who speaks, whose voice, whose story do we believe. More information on the heterogeneous. Then I give you shorter quotations here. Go through them and see what is there that you like and might work for you. That is if you're doing Spivak. And interestingly, the essay goes on to see the explication of the model now. So that circle with the center, there is male now, and it's female on the periphery. So you have a male female binary opposition that you could work. She tells you that in this case, if you're poor and you're black and you're female, you're you get it three ways. You're displaced or you're discriminated against three ways. One, because of you lack power, you're poor, then because of your race, and then because of your gender. Race, class, power. This one here has to do with the poor or the bottom, class. Thank you.